And we're kicking off today with Roman Reigns, who won't be competing at tonight's Survivor Series, and his next match is expected to be at the 2024 Royal Rumble event. The 2024 Rumble will mark the fourth consecutive Royal Rumble event that Reigns has walked into as champion, but there's a big question as to who he'll face at the upcoming show. With the controversial finish to his match with LA Knight at Crown Jewel, some believe a rematch is in store between the two, but that apparently isn't the plan come January. Bryan Alvarez of The Wrestling Observer reports that at this time, Reigns vs. Knight isn't the plan for the Royal Rumble, but it was confirmed that this will be when Reigns' next title match will take place. There are some who feel it should be Knight in that spot, but Triple H is said to have another plan right now, though there's no word on who will be stepping up to the Tribal Chief. Reigns has faced almost every big name during his title reign, with only a select few like Bobby Lashley and the returning Randy Orton not locking horns with him during this run. Of course, Reigns' match won't be the only notable part of the Royal Rumble, as the men's Royal Rumble match could decide Reigns' opponent for WrestleMania 40 in Philadelphia. Many have predicted that Cody Rhodes will win his second Rumble match next year, but who do you think should win the Rumble, and why? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Over to Smackdown, as last night's event took place in Chicago, Illinois, and the crowd in the Windy City had a certain non-WWE superstar in mind. In videos from the Allstate Arena prior to SmackDown going live, you could hear loud CM Punk chants, as there's clearly a portion of fans wanting to see the former world champion. While there has been speculation of Punk appearing at Survivor Series, there's no confirmation of this, with both WWE and Punk telling sources that this will not be happening. A WWE source made it clear to Ringside News that there's no interest in Punk, with the view among many that the damage he did to AEW was as bad as what Vince Russo did to WCW. With that said, fans are continuing to see references to Punk, even if they're not really there, and that includes during last night's SmackDown. On the show, Corey Graves spoke about Kevin Owens and how he became a monster to fight the monsters of the world, which is the same line used from a CM Punk promo in ROH in 2003. While some are seeing this as a nod to Punk, the idea of becoming a monster in one's quest to defeat monsters predates Punk and is often credited to German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Nevertheless, there are still some who believe that WWE is teasing Punk's return, and those in the company are well aware of how things are coming across to fans. A WWE source told Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select that unrealistic expectations are being set because of references on TV, whether the company has plausible deniability or not. Triple H himself has told some in the company that fans are finding things that simply aren't there, with even the vaguest of lines being seen as proof of a Punk return. This week's SmackDown wasn't the first time we've heard Punk chants as of late, as they were heard during Crown Jewel, as well as a recent match between Shinsuke Nakamura and Akira Tozawa. Though WWE realizes that fans are chanting for Punk, that doesn't mean WWE is close or even attempting to sign Punk to a new deal, despite rumors of an imminent return. This month, Living Colour, who performed Punk's entrance theme, released a remaster of Cult of Personality, which, naturally, some are seeing as a sign he'll be using the song again soon. As for the fans at SmackDown, they may have been having fun, or they may have genuinely wanted to see Punk, and if so, they should prepare to be disappointed with tonight's premium live event. But what do you think of all this, including the remaster of his theme just before Survivor Series? Do you feel CM Punk could one day return to WWE? Let us know in the comments below. One name who has caught the attention of CM Punk hunters is Shinsuke Nakamura, who recently began using the GTS on Monday Night Raw. Nakamura has also been cutting cryptic promos in which he is speaking to someone, though it's unclear who, and don't expect this mystery person to be revealed tonight. During a Fightful Q&A, Sean Ross Sapp noted that Nakamura is not booked or advertised for tonight's Survivor Series, and like last year, the show is expected to have 5 matches. As of this past Wednesday, Nakamura wasn't listed to travel to Chicago for the show, so whoever he's speaking to in this mysterious promo won't be revealed tonight. Some fans believe that Nakamura is speaking to CM Punk, who also came up during the Q&A, and it was said that there is seemingly an open door for Punk in TNA or New Japan Pro Wrestling. Whoever Nakamura is speaking to, it is unlikely to be CM Punk, and whoever this mystery person is, they'll have to wait for later this year or 2024 before they reveal themselves. Back to SmackDown, and Becky Lynch had an eventful night, as she was part of the show's opening segment, competed in the main event, and had multiple backstage segments. Lynch, Bianca Belair, Shotzi, Charlotte Flair made their way to the ring to kick off SmackDown, and despite Tease tension between Lynch and Flair, they appeared to be on the same page. Bayley, the master manipulator that she is, tried to poke and prod at the delicate partnership, leading to a main event pitting Flair and Lynch against two Damage Control members. Bayley accepted the match and Asuka was revealed as her partner in a traditional opening promo segment designed to set up the main event. There was a nice touch of Lynch refusing to say Flair's name while explaining her decision to team with the babyface team in an effective bit of continuity. This segment had a little bit of more substance than your typical opening show promos, what with the teases of tension between Flair and Lynch, but it was still an uneventful in-ring promo that could have been handled in shorter backstage vignettes. On the plus side, the chemistry between the characters worked, including Shotzi's unbridled energy in comparison to her more reserved allies. We mentioned earlier how Lynch was part of several backstage segments during the show, and one segment in particular has had fans talking. That segment saw Lynch communicate with her former friend Flair, but many fans were more interested in the third person in the room. In the background, a mysterious shrouded figure could be seen watching the two converse, and neither the man nor the queen noticed that they were being watched. By the time the main event rolled around, Flair and Lynch were on the same page for the most part, and at one point, Lynch nearly had the match won for her team. That was until a spear from Flair accidentally broke up the pinfall, and this led to further tensions before Bayley capitalized and picked up the win for Damage Control. This outcome creates an intriguing cliffhanger, as it begs the question whether the faces are doomed inside War Games because half of their team cannot get along. It gives the match something for fans to sink their teeth into besides the War Game gimmick, something that can only serve to enhance the bout, as we saw a year ago with the Bloodline. Credit should go to the commentary team, who continued to plant the seeds of dissension during the main event, as Lynch failed to enter the arena with the rest of her team to Flair's music. Lynch refused to appear to Flair's music despite the fact that Charlotte had entered to Lynch's theme earlier in the show, in a great call by the commentators that adds even more intrigue. As SmackDown went off the air, it was noticed that Lynch had been busted open around the mouth, albeit nowhere near as bad as what we saw in the run-up to Survivor Series in 2018. Flair and Lynch will likely struggle to be on the same page tonight, but who was that mysterious person watching them backstage? We may get an answer tonight at Survivor Series. During a recent episode of Raw, Drew McIntyre leveled Jey Uso with a Claymore kick, confirming his heel turn, or at least that's what people have been saying about the Scottish Warrior. While Drew McIntyre certainly kicked Jey, the former WWE champion doesn't see what he did as a heel turn, and explained why in a video on social media.
The best heel turns are the justified ones. Who's a heel? Who's a bad guy? Are we not watching the show? Are we not keeping up with things? Do I have to spell things out even more simply? If you're a friend of mine, like I said on Raw, you get it, you understand. If you don't, if you turn your back on me, if you feel a certain way about me, you weren't a fan in the first place, or you just haven't been watching closely, or half closely, because it feels pretty obvious to me, or have a short-term memory, or it's fun to see eat and do this, which it is, but it doesn't change the facts. And that's all I do is tell the truth. I'm a real person, reacting to a real situation with someone that showed up in my backyard who was part of trauma from the worst period of my career, which led to the worst moment of my career. So I'm dealing with it now. I'm doing what a lot of people wish they could do, and I can do, being a WWE superstar. Kick someone's arse who wronged me, point out the truth, be met with not a rebuttal, a yeet down, which is fun to say, but it's not exactly replying to the facts that were presented. Nonetheless, don't care, got him in a cage, still the same guy, my fans get it, whatever. I'm going to keep being me, keep kicking arse, and eventually get back to that world title with people in the crowd. Simple.
McIntyre clearly feels he's in the right, and to his credit, Jey did do plenty to Drew back when Uso was part of the Bloodline, a period of time that McIntyre hasn't forgotten. Drew will team up with the Judgment Day inside War Games tonight, but isn't a member of the group, and as far as McIntyre's concerned, he's hardly turned heel with his actions on Raw. But what do you think? Is McIntyre justified in what he's been doing on TV? And do you still support the Scottish superstar? Let us know down below. More from SmackDown as the Judgment Day's Damian Priest and Finn Balor put the undisputed WWE Tag Team titles on the line this week against Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. The Street Profits earned their title shot last week by beating the Brawling Brutes in Pretty Deadly in triple threat action, with their title match being made official for this week's show. The match began with back and forth from both teams before the Profits took control after Ford dropped Balor and executed the plancha. At one point, the Street Profits hit the blockbuster from the top rope, but it wasn't enough to put the undisputed tag team champions away. Instead, it was Balor and Priest who retained, thanks to a timely assist by Rhea Ripley, and Finn got the pinfall following a coup de grace on Montez Ford. The Judgment Day, alongside Drew McIntyre, is set to face the formidable team consisting of Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and Randy Orton tonight inside the iconic War Games. What did you make of this tag team title match, and did WWE get things right by having the Judgment Day retain? Let us know in the comments section below. In the weeks prior to this week's Smackdown, Seth Rollins was being advertised for the show, and while the World Heavyweight Champion did make an appearance, it wasn't during the broadcast. Instead, Rollins was kept backstage during the show and appeared after Smackdown for a post-episode dark match in which he defended against his old nemesis, Finn Balor. Rollins and Balor had back-to-back title matches at premium live events earlier this year, with the first being at Money in the Bank in London and the second coming at SummerSlam in Detroit. Balor has arguably been Rollins' biggest and most important feud as World Heavyweight Champion so far, and with Damian Priest in his Money in the Bank contract, Seth's issues with the Judgment Day aren't over yet. While Balor and Priest successfully defended their tag titles against the Street Profits this week, the Irish superstar did not have the same luck against Seth, who retained his title in a hard-fought match. Balor would describe this match as a warm-up for War Games, and between the tag title match, this post-Smackdown bout, and War Games, Balor will have competed 3 times in 24 hours, a testament to his skills in the ring. During the most recent episode of Ring of Honor, Ronda Rousey made her debut for the company, teaming with Marina Shafir to defeat Athena and Billy Starks. This is the same match that Rousey was part of during the recent Wrestling Revolver show, and the booking of that show was influenced by Tony Khan. In the Wrestling Observer, it was noted that Khan had a deal with Rousey and that he allowed the match on the Revolver card, but on the condition that the match had a DQ finish. Khan also made sure that a rematch would happen on the ROH taping in LA, and that would be the match that would see Rousey get the win. Rousey isn't under contract with Ring of Honor, but Tony Khan said he'd love to have her back, and perhaps we'll see more of the baddest woman on the planet in ROH and even AEW in 2024. It was 2 weeks ago on SmackDown that Santos Escobar betrayed the LWO, turning heel in the process by injuring the leg of Rey Mysterio. Escobar was angry that Mysterio had sided with Carlito instead of him, and last week's show saw Santos attack Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde. On this week's show, Carlito addressed his planned match for Survivor Series against Escobar, and addressed the ex-LWO member mainly in Spanish, leading to a brawl between the two at ringside. The pair continued fighting backstage, with Escobar getting the upper hand and decimating Carlito before Dragon Lee emerged and took Escobar out with a Hurricane Rana. Due to the attack, Nick Aldis announced that Carlito was injured and wouldn't be able to perform at Survivor Series, and intended to postpone the match. That was until Lee offered to replace Carlito, and tonight's event will now see Dragon Lee face Santos Escobar instead of the former US champion. Escobar is already one of the most hated guys in the company, and Lee stepping up to defend the LWO without being an official member of the faction to this point is a great way of building him. Who do you think will win what will no doubt be a fast-paced match? Let us know in the comments. SmackDown also saw Ridge Holland and Butch face Pretty Deadly in what may have been the last time we saw the Brawling Brutes as a tag team. During the match, as Butch was ready to make a tag, Holland walked out on his partner after weeks of building tensions between the two. Despite this, Butch continued to fight, even landing a brogue kick at a bitter end on his opponents, but it wasn't enough to seal the deal as he was overpowered by Pretty Deadly. With Holland's betrayal, this could be what brings Sheamus back to TV, as his return from injury is expected soon. And whatever comes next, it seems the Brawling Brutes are officially over. Kevin Owens returned from his suspension during this week's SmackDown and paired up with L.A. Knight to cause chaos during the night's Grayson Waller Effect segment. Waller announced Owens as his guest last week, believing that KO would still be suspended and unable to appear as his guest, and had Austin Theory dress as Owens to mock the Canadian. That was before the real Kevin Owens headed down the ramp and into the ring to confront the duo and make clear that his suspension has been lifted by Nick Aldis. That is why Owens had assumed Waller announced that he would be a guest on his show, but Kevin was in a fighting mood and challenged the pair to a match. When Waller said Owens was outnumbered and brought up Knight's name, out came the megastar to Owens' aid, setting up a tag team match between the four superstars. The babyfaces destroyed Waller's set in the ring, and Owens and Knight would get the victory when Knight pinned Theory in a great showcase for 4 people missing from the Survivor Series card. The Chicago crowd was red hot for the babyfaces, especially Knight, and stayed with the action the whole way through and popped for a hot comeback from the faces. The heels played their role to perfection, bumping all over the ring while never losing credibility, and with the right team going over, this was exactly what this tag team match should have been. When Tony Khan announced the AEW Continental Classic, he also announced Bryan Danielson as the first entrant into the Round Robin tournament in another huge announcement. Danielson is part of the Blue League for the tournament, which will only see 2 matches on this week's Collision, not 3, and there's a reason why this is the case. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it was explained that as of last week, Danielson was still awaiting medical clearance to fly, so he couldn't make it to this week's show. That's why his Continental Classic match with Andrade, the man who broke his orbital bone in the first place, didn't happen this week, and the hope is that he'll be cleared for next week's Collision. Without Danielson around, the Blue League matches for this week's Collision will see Eddie Kingston face Brody King and Daniel Garcia take on Claudio Castagnoli. As for Danielson, many are calling him a favorite in this tournament, but only if he can make it to the shows, and we are wishing the American Dragon all the best at this time. Earlier this week, it was reported that Juice Robinson was out with a back injury, and while it is not expected to be an extremely drawn-out absence, a return date remains unclear. Robinson hasn't competed since the November 1st Dynamite, and in the Wrestling Observer, it was reported that there's no word on how long he'll be out of action. Robinson has undergone back surgery due to this injury, and last week's Rampage saw an angle which MJF attacked him backstage to write Robinson off of TV. Robinson may not miss a ton of time, but he will be out for the foreseeable future, meaning that Jay White will have one less ally in the ongoing Continental Classic. At Full Gear, Will Ospreay confirmed that he is all elite by signing with AEW despite his ongoing contract as part of New Japan. It was explained that Ospreay will continue to work for New Japan until February when his deal expires, but what does this mean for all his teammates in the United Empire? While Ospreay is set to leave New Japan soon, Great-O-Khan told Tokyo Sports that he will remain as part of the United Empire, and that the faction will have to show their strength in AEW. Great-O-Khan shared some of his own aspirations, joking that Tony Khan is like a distant relative, and said that he will become the chosen savior of Japanese wrestling, and even mentioned Shinsuke Nakamura. In a recent interview, Nakamura said that Japanese professional wrestling needs a savior, and Great-O-Khan has elected himself for that role laid out by the Raw superstar. Great-O-Khan's New Japan journey started in 2015, and he debuted with the company in February 2016 and has become a 2-time IWGP World Tag Team Champion with Jeff Cobb. As to whether we'll see him in AEW, time will tell, but expect Ospreay and his United Empire to leave an impression in both AEW and New Japan.